Jehovah's Witnesses refer to their religion as the truth. They claim to be the only true religion that understands what the Bible teaches. They also believe they are the only ones who understand biblical prophecy, and that they are the only organization that imitates the first century Christian congregation. The problem with this is that their doctrines have changed numerous times over the years. If today Jehovah's Witnesses are the truth, that means that yesterday it wasn't the truth, since what they teach today is not the same as what they taught in the past. Truth is defined as things with a basis in actuality, fact, or reality. If what you believed prior was later proven to be false, then it was never the truth. But Jehovah's Witnesses will never admit that their prior system of belief was not the truth. If you ask one of Jehovah's Witnesses about these doctrinal changes, they'll refer to the change not as the correction of a mistake, but as new light from God. This classification of new light breaks down under scrutiny, however. For instance, from 1880 up until 1954, Watchtower promoted the worship of both Jehovah and Jesus as gods, making it a polytheistic religion. In 1954, worshiping Jesus became a disfellowshipping offense. If Jehovah's Witnesses were being guided by Holy Spirit to the truth, would God really have guided them to wrongly worship someone else in addition to himself for almost 75 years? Did Jehovah's Witnesses have the truth when they worshiped both Jehovah and Jesus? Or was it a false religion because it taught a form of worship that's contrary to what's actually true? That is, it's not based in fact or reality. Another example is the celebration of Christmas. Up until 1926, Watchtower endorsed the celebration of Christmas. In 1927, it was outlawed as a pagan celebration. So for almost 50 years, Christmas was okay, and then it wasn't. Keep in mind that Watchtower claims the organization was cleansed of impurity in 1919, and yet the celebration of Christmas persisted for another 7 years after that. If it was cleansed and Christmas was pagan, why wasn't the celebration of the holiday stopped in 1919? If Christmas is and always has been a pagan holiday, and yet Watchtower endorsed its celebration for decades, wasn't Watchtower's system of belief just another false religion up until the time Christmas was prohibited? It could not have been the truth both before and after the change, because before the change it wasn't based in fact or reality, if after the change it was. Before the change it must have been a falsehood, not the truth. Those are only a few of dozens of examples of doctrinal changes over the years. If Jehovah's Witnesses really had the truth, it would never change at all. Either the moon is made out of cheese, or it isn't. Either the earth is the center of the universe, or it isn't. There were times when both of those things were believed to be true, but they never were the truth. They were always false. The truth doesn't change from day to day. Only people's opinions change. Clearly, Jehovah's Witnesses do not have the truth because their belief system continually changes. Another problem with Jehovah's Witnesses labeling their doctrinal changes as new light is that some doctrines have completely flip-flopped. For instance, up until 1929, the superior authorities of Romans chapter 13 were believed to be the governments of the world. In 1929, Watchtower changed that belief, saying it was referring to Jehovah God and Jesus, not the governments. That remained their interpretation until 1962, when they changed it back to the original understanding. And today, Jehovah's Witnesses continue to believe that the superior authorities are referring to world governments. If the change in belief in 1929 was new light from God, why did Watchtower later regress back into the old darkness, the original understanding? That's not new light. That's a mistake that had to be corrected. Let's just call it what it is. But Watchtower never admits to making mistakes. Ever. Another example of doctrinal flip-flopping is organ transplants. In 1961, it was left up to each individual to decide for themselves whether they wanted a transplant. But by 1967, organ transplants had been completely prohibited, being labeled cannibalism. However, in 1980, that doctrine was reversed back to the original doctrine of it being left up to the individual. Again, if the change from a transplant being left up to the individual to it being absolutely prohibited was new light from God, why was the new light reversed in a return to the old darkness of it being a personal decision? Jehovah's Witnesses take what they call the truth so seriously that a person can be disfellowshipped and shunned if they openly declare they do not agree with one of the teachings from the Watchtower. Watchtower calls any dissension from their current version of the truth apostasy. Here's an example of why that's a problem. Today, Watchtower prohibits whole blood transfusions. If a witness were to get a blood transfusion despite this prohibition, they would be announced as no longer being one of Jehovah's Witnesses and shunned, losing all contact with any family and friends who are Jehovah's Witnesses. But if the no blood doctrine was changed tomorrow, the person who broke the rule yesterday that is no longer a rule today would not be allowed back in, nor would they be apologized to for the mistake made by Watchtower and the enormous turmoil from being shunned. Watchtower openly admits that its governing body is neither inspired nor infallible. So why is it that they remove people for disobeying the rules they admit are just the interpretations of men, especially since those interpretations change on a regular basis? There's nothing wrong with living by a system of beliefs based on interpretation, and there's nothing wrong with refining that belief system over time and making improvements. There is a serious problem, however, with claiming your way is the only truth when that way is continually changing, and an even bigger problem in disfellowshipping and shunning people who do not accept your ever-changing belief system as the truth. Think about the ramifications here. When a person studies to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they are told repeatedly that the witnesses have the truth. Let's say the student agrees and gets baptized based on what they were taught as the truth. When that so-called truth later changes, and it inevitably will, if the student sticks to the original truth they were taught, they will be disfellowshipped and shunned as an apostate for believing what they were taught was the truth not long before the change. It's absurd. As I said in the beginning, Jehovah's Witnesses also believe they have the truth because they understand Bible prophecy and nobody else does. Let's put that claim under scrutiny as well. In 1920, Watchtower published a booklet titled "Millions Now Living Will Never Die." The title really says it all because Watchtower then believed that to be a statement of fact. It was based on a sermon given by Joseph F. Rutherford in 1918. That was over 100 years ago, and obviously that interpretation of prophecy turned out to be false, not the truth. In 1984, Watchtower again made a bold prediction, with the May 15th edition of the Watchtower magazine carrying the title 1914, The Generation That Will Not Pass Away. On the cover, many elderly people are depicted, which Watchtower clearly expected to live into the paradise they say is coming. That was 35 years ago. Based on the ages of the people on the cover, I think it's safe to say that they're all dead. So was Watchtower's interpretation of prophecy the truth? No, it was false. Not an organization to be deterred by continual failure in prophetic fulfillment, however, Watchtower tried again in the January 1st, 1989 Watchtower, where it stated that their preaching work would be completed in the 20th century, ushering in the promised paradise. But it's 2019, and Jehovah's Witnesses are still preaching. Was Watchtower's interpretation of prophecy the truth? No, it was yet again false. If it wasn't the truth, and the religion was not teaching the truth, well, that makes it just another one of what Watchtower calls a false religion. If it's not true, it's false. You can't be the truth if what you taught was not true. Let's recap. 1. Jehovah's Witnesses claim their religion is the truth. 2. Truth is defined as things with a basis in actuality, fact, or reality. 3. Jehovah's Witnesses have changed their doctrines repeatedly over the years. 4. Jehovah's Witnesses' interpretations of end times prophecies have also repeatedly failed to come true. Conclusion: Jehovah's Witnesses are not the truth. While this seems obvious to anyone from the outside looking in, witnesses are taught that it is still the truth. It's just been refined with new light from God. However, the flip-flopping of doctrines, such as of the superior authorities and the permissibility of organ transplants, proves that cannot be true either. If God was giving Jehovah's Witnesses new light, their doctrines would not fall back into the old darkness that they were previously. Watchtower has painted itself into a corner here. If they have the truth, then their predictions should come true, and their beliefs should not change. Since neither of those things are the case, they are forced to continually issue corrections in the form of new light that can also easily be debunked. If they admit they were wrong, but have disfellowshipped and shunned people for rejecting their wrong beliefs and refuse to readmit them or apologize for the mistake, then at best they are clearly exposing themselves as a false religion. And at worst, they open themselves up for serious legal action that might be taken against them by the people they have wronged. Is it any wonder that 66% of people born into the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses in the United States leave the religion? All of this provides evidence that one statement made by the Watchtower is verifiably and repeatably true, however. The governing body is neither inspired nor infallible.